The wind howled through Chicago's streets, sharp as a blade, slicing through my coat as I stumbled out of the hospital at 2:17 IE. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, heavy and unsteady after 13 hours slumped in a vinyl chair beside Noah's bed. His monitors beeped in my head even now, a relentless rhythm of hope and dread. The ICU's fluorescent lights still burned behind my eyes, and the smell of antiseptic clung to my skin like a second shadow. I fumbled for my car keys, the cold biting my fingers, and then I saw it. My old Honda, parked crookedly under a flickering street lamp, its tires slashed to ribbons. A scrap of paper fluttered under the wiper, scrawled in jagged marker, "Pay or leave." My breath caught, a cloud of frost in the air. I scanned the empty lot, heart hammering, but the night was silent except for the distant wail of a siren. I stuffed the note into my pocket, got into the car, and drove home on rims that screamed against the asphalt, praying the wheels wouldn't give out before I reached the building. The high-rise loomed ahead, a 12-store relic of Chicago's better days, its brick facade crumbling like the dreams of everyone inside. I parked in the alley, the engine coughing its last breath, and climbed the 3 flights of stairs to my apartment, Unit 7C. The hallway was dim, the air thick with the smell of damp carpet and cheap paint. My keys jingled in my hand, but I froze when I saw it. A bright pink sheet taped to my door, flapping in the draft like a warning flag. I ripped it down, my breath fogging the air, and read the first line. Effective immediately, rent increased from $1,900.00 to $5,900.00. Pay or vacate by 10:00 a.m. No greeting, no explanation, just those words, cold and final, signed at the bottom in sharp, familiar cursive. Vanessa Reed, CEO, Reed Realty Group. My sister. My blood. The woman who knew Noah was fighting for his life in the ICU and still chose to slap this on my door like I was nothing. I stood there, the paper trembling in my hands, trying to decide if this was some cruel joke, but the embossed letterhead, the same one Vanessa used for every eviction she'd ever served, told me it was real. My chest tightened, a slow burn spreading through me. Not rage, not yet, but something sharper, like the moment before a storm breaks. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was freezing, the radiator silent since I'd been living at the hospital, sleeping in waiting rooms with stale coffee and Noah's name on every prayer. I dropped my bag by the couch, still clutching the notice, and sank into the cushions, the springs creaking under my weight. Vanessa hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't even pretended to care. Just this pink slip, like I was a stranger, like I hadn't given up everything to come back here. 8 years ago, I'd walked away from a life in Seattle. A promotion, a corner office, a chance to shape cities with my urban planning degree, to care for our mother when her lungs started failing. Vanessa swore we'd settle the inheritance later, that everything was locked in a trust until the estate was finalized. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. She was my big sister, the one who'd braided my hair and snuck me cookies when Mom wasn't looking. But after Mom died, the months bled into years. No will surfaced, no lawyer called, just Vanessa taking over piece by piece until she stopped calling me her sister and started calling me Tenant 7C. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over her number. It rang once, then kicked to voicemail, her voice crisp and professional. "This is Vanessa Reed. Leave a message." I swallowed, my throat dry. "Vanessa, it's me. I got your notice Noah's still in the ICU, and I can't deal with this right now. Can we talk?" I sent a text to follow up, short and raw. "Please. He's not out of danger." An hour passed, then 2. The radiator hissed, barely warming the room. I stood in the kitchenette, staring at a kettle that wouldn't boil, when my phone buzzed. Vanessa's reply was a single line, Business is business. You've had cheap rent long enough. I stared at the screen, her words slicing deeper than the cold. No mention of Noah, no flicker of concern, just that flat, clip dismissal. I set the phone down, my hands shaking, and leaned against the counter, the pink slip still crumpled in my fist. The kettle screamed, steam clouding the air, and I poured water over a tea bag I didn't drink. A soft knock broke the silence. I hesitated, then opened the door to find Mrs. Kowalski, the widow from 6B, her face lined with worry, smelling faintly of lavender and Bengay. She held out a Tupperware container. "Thought you could use something warm, Emily." Her eyes flicked to the notice in my hand. "She left one on my door last winter, tripled my rent overnight, said I could find a shelter if I didn't like it." I took the container, my voice catching. "Thank you." She patted my arm. "You don't deserve this, honey. Neither does that boy of yours. She's cold, that Vanessa. Cold as Lake Michigan in January." When the door clicked shut, the silence returned, heavier now, like it knew what was coming. I sat back on the couch, the soup untouched, and opened my laptop, the hospital Wi-Fi sluggish, but enough to pull up an old email I'd buried in a folder labeled Mom. There it was, a PDF attachment. Deed of transfer, Carter Tower, Unit 7C and full property. My name in bold, Emily Carter, sole owner. Notarized 2 weeks before Mom's final surgery. I'd saved it out of grief, maybe denial, but never told anyone. Not even Vanessa. She didn't know. No one did. I stared at the screen, the legal font stark against the white background. This was mine, not hers, not Reed Realty Group. My fingers curled around the edge of the laptop, and I reached into my purse for the black folder I'd kept for emergencies. It was heavy, sealed, the kind of weight that carried secrets too dangerous to speak. I'd hoped never to open it, but that pink slip changed everything. "You left me no choice," I whispered, my eyes on Noah's photo taped to the fridge, his gap-toothed grin frozen in better days. By 3:00 a.m. I was back at the hospital, the folder tucked under my arm. Noah was still under, his chest rising and falling with the ventilator's rhythm. The machines blinked, their green lines of fragile promise. I sat beside him, my hand brushing his curls, and opened the laptop again, double-checking the deed. It was real, airtight, filed with the county clerk. I closed the screen and leaned back, the chair creaking. The hallway outside buzzed faintly, nurses' shoes squeaking, a cart rattling past. But inside me something else was waking up. Not fear, not rage, but a quiet, crackling resolve, like the spark before a fire catches. I slipped the folder back into my bag and stood, kissing Noah's forehead. "I'll be back, baby. Mama's got something to handle." At 9:07, Chicago's morning cold hit like a slap as I stepped outside the hospital. I walked past my wrecked car, the rims still bare, and ignored the parking ticket flapping under the wiper. Let them tow it. I wasn't scared of small things anymore. By 10:02, I was in the glass lobby of Reed Realty's downtown office, the kind of place that screamed money. Marble floors, soft jazz piped through hidden speakers. A receptionist who looked like she'd never known a bad day. She glanced up, no smile. "Name?" "Emily Carter." She typed, frowned. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," her lips pursed. "Then I'm afraid—" "I'm her sister," I said, my voice flat. She blinked, then picked up the phone, murmuring something I couldn't hear. I didn't wait. I walked past her desk, my boots echoing, and a man in a navy blazer blocked my path, his smile too polished. "Miss Carter, I'm Gregory, Vanessa's assistant. Meetings are by appointment only." I looked past him to the glass door marked Executive Suite V. Reed. "Tell her I'm here, or I'll tell security what's in the basement files under C for Carter." His jaw tightened, but he stepped aside. 5 minutes later, I walked into Vanessa's office, the air thick with peppermint and ambition. She sat behind a desk the size of my kitchen, a green smoothie beside her MacBook, probably her usual kale and almond milk nonsense. She didn't stand, didn't blink, just tapped a key and said, "Well, you made it before noon." Her voice was too smooth, like she'd rehearsed it. I sat across from her, uninvited, and dropped the pink slip on her desk. "You got my notice?" she asked, her eyes scanning my coat, my jeans, the exhaustion carved into my face. "I did." She folded her hands, nails perfect. "Markets change, Emily. Pay the new rate or vacate. That's how it works." I leaned forward, my voice low. "I know a lot of things, Vanessa, like how you've been running this building without a legal trust." Her lips twitched, just for a second. I reached into my bag, pulled out the black folder, and slid it across the desk, the deed inside it like a loaded gun. "Before you talk about markets, read this." She hesitated, new for her, then opened the folder, her eyes darting across the page. The notary seal caught the light, and her hand froze. "This is—" she started, her voice thinner now. "The deed," I said. "Notarized before Mom died. I'm the owner." "Not you, not your LLC, me." Silence, stretched, sharp and brittle. She set the papers down, her cool cracking. "You're bluffing." "You know I'm not." I pulled out a second document, stapled, dated. "These are your filings, Vanessa. You used a trust you had no right to. You raised rents on people like Mrs. Kowalski, who can barely afford her meds." Her nails tapped the desk, once, twice. "I've managed this place for years. Taxes, repairs, everything." "You mean evictions," I said, "like the veteran in 4A or the cancer patient in 9B you pushed out last spring." Her eyes narrowed. "You always think with your heart, Emily. That's why you're stuck. That's why you'll always be small." Her words landed like a punch, but I didn't flinch. I stood, gathering the folder. "You didn't just evict me," I said, my voice steady. "You tried to evict my son while he's hooked to a ventilator." She didn't answer. I turned and walked out, no yelling, just the quiet click of my boots on her marble floor. As the elevator doors closed, Gregory slipped in, panting. "Miss Carter, off the record, how long have you known about the deed?" I looked at him, his tie askew, his cologne sharp with panic. "Long enough," I said, a faint smile curling my lips. "Long enough to know I don't owe her anything." The elevator dinged, and I stepped into the lobby, the city's pulse vibrating through the glass. But as I pushed through the revolving doors, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have done that." I stopped, my breath shallow, and scanned the street. A black SUV idled across the road, its windows tinted, engine humming like a threat. I tucked the folder tighter under my arm and started walking, the cold air sharp in my lungs, the weight of Vanessa's empire pressing against me. She didn't know it yet, but I wasn't just fighting for Noah or myself. I was fighting for every tenant she'd crushed, every life she'd treated like a line item. And I had the deed to burn it all down. Back at the building, I climbed the stairs, my heart still racing. The hallway was quieter now, the draft colder. I unlocked my door, expecting the familiar chill of my apartment, but something was wrong. The air felt disturbed, papers scattered across the floor, drawers half open. I stepped inside, my pulse loud in my ears, and saw, on the bathroom mirror, written in red marker, smudged like a wound, "You're not safe." My hand went to my phone, but it buzzed again. Another unknown number. "Back off, or Noah pays." I gripped the folder, my knuckles white, and sank to the floor, the pink slip still crumpled in my pocket. Vanessa wasn't just plain dirty. She was playing for blood. The words on my bathroom mirror, "You're not safe," burned in my mind as I sat on the cold floor of my apartment, the black folder clutched against my chest. My phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with another threat from an unknown number. Back off, or Noah pays. My breath hitched, shallow and sharp like the air itself was turning against me. Chicago's dawn was still hours away, the city outside my window a gray smear of streetlights and shadows. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady, and checked the deadbolt for the third time. Its metal cold under my fingers. The break-in had left my apartment violated, papers strewn like confetti, drawers yanked open, but nothing was missing, except my sense of safety. I knew Vanessa was behind this. The slashed tires, the note, the hacked messages. She was escalating, and I was running out of time to protect Noah. I sank onto the couch, the springs groaning, and opened the folder again, the deed's notary seal glinting under the dim lamp. It was my shield, my proof, but it felt like a target painted on my back. I couldn't stay here, not with Vanessa's threats circling closer. I grabbed my laptop, the hospital's Wi-Fi password still taped to the lid, and typed out an anonymous complaint to the Chicago Housing Authority, detailing every violation I'd seen in this crumbling high-rise. Faulty wiring sparking in the basement, mold creeping up the walls, a boiler that groaned like it was ready to blow. I hit send, my pulse loud in my ears, and leaned back, the weight of what I'd just done settling into my bones. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Mrs. Kowalski, the veteran in 4A. Every tenant Vanessa had bled dry. But as the confirmation email pinged, a chill ran through me. Vanessa wouldn't let this slide. She'd come for blood. By 6:00 IEM, I was back at the hospital, the folder tucked into a backpack I hadn't used since Noah's last school trip. His room was quiet, the monitors beeping softly, his small body curled under a thin blanket. I sat beside him, brushing a curl from his forehead, and whispered, "We're gonna make it, baby." His lips twitched, a ghost of a smile, and for a moment the world outside didn't exist. But my phone buzzed, shattering the peace. A text from Gregory, Vanessa's assistant. "She knows you are at the office. Be careful." I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. Gregory was a coward, but he wasn't a liar. I typed back, "What's she planning?" No reply. I slipped the phone into my pocket and kissed Noah's hand, promising to return before lunch. As I left the ICU, a nurse in blue scrubs nodded, her eyes kind but tired. "He's a fighter," she said. I forced a smile, but the words felt like a warning. Fighters don't always win. The housing inspectors arrived at the building by 9:00, their city-issued jackets crisp against the grime of the lobby. I met them at the entrance, my backpack heavy with the folder, my nerves tighter than the rusted stairwell bolts. The lead inspector, a man named Hargrove with gray stubble and a clipboard, glanced at me. "Ms. Carter, you the one who called this in?" I shook my head, keeping my voice steady. "Just a tenant, but I can show you around." His partner, a woman named Ruiz, nodded, her tablet already open. We started in the basement, the air thick with the smell of wet cardboard and oil. I pointed out the exposed wires, the black mold tracing the walls like veins. Hargrove's pen scratched furiously, his face grim. "This is worse than I thought," he muttered, shining a flashlight on the boiler. It hissed, a low, angry sound, and Ruiz tapped her tablet. "Pressure's off the charts. This thing's a bomb waiting to go off." We moved to the stairwell, the lights flickering overhead, when a groan echoed above us. I looked up just as a ceiling panel buckled, dust raining down. "Move!" Hargrove shouted, shoving me aside as the panel crashed to the floor, inches from where I'd stood, its edges jagged with rusted screws. My heart pounded, my hands shaking as I steadied myself against the wall. Ruiz held me up, her eyes wide. "You okay?" I nodded, but my mind raced. That wasn't an accident. Vanessa's threats were no longer just words. Hargrove dusted off his jacket. "This place is a death trap. We're shutting down the east stairwell effective now." I swallowed, my throat dry, and led them to the upper floors, every creak of the building feeling like a warning. We were in the 5th floor hallway, Hargrove photographing a leaking pipe, when the lobby doors slammed open below. Heels clicked against the linoleum, sharp and furious, and Vanessa's voice cut through the air like a blade. "What the hell is going on here?" She stormed up the stairs, her power coat billowing, her face a mask of rage. The tenants' doors cracked open, faces peering out. Mrs. Kowalski, the man with the oxygen tank from 4B? Vanessa's eyes locked on me, narrowing to slits. "You did this, didn't you? Sabotaging my building, stirring up trouble like some deranged squatter." I stepped forward, my voice low but steady. "You raised my rent to $5,900.00 while my son fights to breathe in the ICU. This isn't sabotage, it's justice." The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Vanessa's lips curled, but before she could speak, Hargrove cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we're here on a city complaint. This property's got violations that could kill someone." Vanessa spun on him, her voice venomous. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." He didn't flinch. "And you have no idea how many codes you've broken." The inspectors left an hour later, their report thick with violations. Faulty wiring, toxic mold, a boiler flagged for immediate replacement. They taped a partial shutdown notice to the lobby door, the east stairwell now off limits. I stood in the hallway, watching tenants whisper, their faces a mix of fear and hope. "Mrs.?" Kowalski touched my arm, her voice soft. "You're braver than I ever was." I gave her a tired smile, but inside I was unraveling. Vanessa's parting glare had promised war, and I knew she wouldn't stop at threats. That night, my phone lit up with notifications. Vanessa's smear campaign had hit social media. Doctored photos of me, wild-eyed and shouting, captioned "Emily Carter, unhinged tenant, tries to destroy family legacy." Comments poured in, vicious and anonymous. "She's a liar, kick her out." My stomach churned, but I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and drafted a countersuit, naming Vanessa for fraud, tenant abuse, and embezzlement. I sent it to Rachel Stein, a tenant rights attorney I'd met at a city forum last year. Her reply was instant. "This is dynamite. Meet me tomorrow." Rachel's office was a fortress of files and coffee stains, tucked in a loop high-rise that smelled like ink and ambition. She was relentless, her dark eyes sharp as she slid a folder across her desk. "Your deed's airtight, Emily. Notarized, filed, untouchable. But Vanessa's been running a scam for years." She opened a spreadsheet, lines of numbers glowing on her screen. Shell companies, offshore accounts. She's funneled millions from the building's funds, and this? She tapped a document, my signature scrawled at the bottom, forged. She used it to terminate leases, transfer money, even evict tenants. My breath caught, the betrayal sinking deeper. Vanessa hadn't just stolen my home. She'd stolen my name. Rachel leaned back, her voice low. "We can bury her, but it's gonna get ugly. You ready?" I nodded, my hands steady for the first time in days. "Do it." But as I left Rachel's office, my phone buzzed with a new nightmare. Messages I hadn't sent flooded the tenant group chat, vicious and threatening, "Pay up or get out, you're next." My account had been hacked, the words twisting my voice into a weapon. Tenants replied, panicked and angry, some tagging Vanessa's smear posts. I froze on the sidewalk, the city blurring around me, and called my carrier, changing every password I had. But the damage was done. Tenants who'd trusted me now doubted, their fear feeding Vanessa's lies. I leaned against a street lamp, my chest tight, when a black SUV crept past, the same one I'd seen outside Vanessa's office. It slowed, its tinted windows reflecting my face, then sped off, leaving exhaust in my lungs. I ducked into an alley, my heart racing, and waited, the folder pressed against my ribs. Vanessa's goons were tailing me, and I was running out of places to hide. I needed allies, someone to amplify the truth. Claire Novak, an investigative reporter with a knack for exposing Chicago's underbelly, agreed to meet me at a diner off Halsted, its neon sign flickering like a dying star. The place smelled of grease and regret, the booths sticky with years of spilled coffee. I slid into the seat across from Claire, her laptop open, her pen tapping a rhythm of impatience. "You got something worth my time?" she asked, her voice low. I handed her a USB, my fingers steady despite the knot in my stomach. Vanessa's financials, shell companies, forged signatures, tenant evictions, it's all there. Claire plugged it in, her eyes scanning the files. A crypted audio file loaded, Vanessa's voice crackling through her earbuds, laughing. "Emily thinks she's smart, but I've buried the truth deeper than she'll ever dig." Claire's brow arched. What's she hiding? I shook my head. I don't know, but it's bigger than the building. Claire nodded, slipping the USB into her pocket. "This airs tomorrow. Stay safe, Emily." She's not playing. Left the diner, the city's pulse louder now, every shadow a threat. Back at the building, I drafted letters to the tenants, my words simple but raw. "I'm fighting for you. Your rights matter. Stay with me." I slipped them under every door, my boots quiet on the worn carpet. But as I reached my apartment, my phone rang. The hospital. My heart stopped. "Miss Carter, it's about Noah," the nurse said, her voice tight. "He's had a setback. You need to come now." I grabbed my bag, the folder inside, and ran, the stairwell's echoes chasing me. At the hospital, Noah's monitors were erratic, his breathing shallow. The doctor's face was grim. "We're stabilizing him, but it's touch and go." I sat by his bed, my hand on his, the world narrowing to his pulse. "You're stronger than this," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. Hours passed, the night blurring, when my phone buzzed again, a text from Claire. "Exposé's live. Check the news." I opened the link, Claire's voice steady over visuals of Vanessa's forged documents, evicted tenants, and a leaked email hinting she'd bribed a city official to ignore the building's violations. The comment section exploded, tenant unions and media swarming the story. But my relief was cut short by another buzz. "Rachel, IRS is auditing Vanessa. It's criminal now." Noah's condition stabilized by morning, his eyes fluttering open. "Mom?" he whispered, his voice scratchy. I smiled, brushing his hair back. "Right here, baby." The doctor nodded, hopeful. "He's turning a corner, maybe home by Friday." I clung to that promise, but as I stepped into the hallway, my phone vibrated with a tenant's text. "Found something in the basement. Old ledger. Your mom's name's all over it." My pulse quickened. What else had Mom hidden? I was about to reply when a delivery man appeared, holding a thick envelope. "Emily Carter?" I signed, my hands cold, and opened it in the hallway. Court papers from Vanessa, filing for custody of Noah, claiming I was mentally unfit. My knees buckled, the words blurring. She wasn't just after the building, she wanted my son. The family courthouse was a gray monolith, its halls echoing with footsteps and hushed arguments. Rachel met me outside, her file thick, her eyes sharp. "She's desperate," she said, handing me a folder. "We've got texts where she calls Noah collateral. It's damning." Inside, Vanessa sat in a navy suit, her face a mask of concern, her lawyer slick beside her. Judge Callahan, a woman with steel gray hair, flipped through the motion. "Miss Carter, you understand the petition?" I nodded, my voice steady. "Yes, Your Honor." Vanessa's lawyer stood, his voice oily. Mrs. Carter's erratic behavior, public outbursts, false claims, endangers her son. Vanessa leaned forward, tear-staged. "I just want Noah safe." I looked at her, my heart pounding but my face still. "Safe," I said, You raised my rent to $5,900, 0 cents while he was in the ICU. You called him leverage? The room stilled. Rachel stood, sliding texts and recordings across the bench. Vanessa's voice filled the courtroom, cold and laughing. Noah's just collateral, she'll break soon. Callahan's jaw tightened. Rachel didn't stop. Affidavits from tenants. Vanessa mocked Noah's illness, evicted the elderly for complaining. The judge's eyes flicked to Vanessa, hard and unyielding. I stood, my voice clear. I've never asked for pity. I paid my rent, followed every rule, even when Vanessa erased me from our family. But I won't stay silent when it's about my son. He's my life. I've held him through seizures, promised him safety. If that's unstable, I'll carry it. Callahan set the papers down, her hands folded. Petition denied, she said, her voice like granite. Sole custody to Emily Carter. Restraining order issued against Ms. Reed, and based on these documents, I'm ordering a financial investigation into Reed Realty. The gavel fell, a thunderclap. Vanessa lunged across the table, her nails inches from my face, screaming, "You'll regret this!" Bailiffs restrained her, her voice echoing as they dragged her out. I stood, trembling but unbroken, Rachel's hand on my shoulder. Outside, she handed me a new file, her voice soft. Your mom left something else, a letter. I opened it, Mom's handwriting shaky but clear. I knew Vanessa's greed would break us. This building is yours, Emily. For Noah, for truth. My breath caught. No tears, just clarity. Back at the building, tenants had rallied, painting murals in the lobby, baking bread for the shared kitchen. Mrs. Kowalski hung curtains in the community room, light streaming through its windows. A mural of Noah and other kids, arms outstretched, read, "Family fights together." I walked the halls, the air lighter, when a package appeared at my door, no sender, just a note. Vanessa's tied to a developer. They wanted the land. Here's proof. My pulse raced. What else had she planned? That night, Noah and I sat on the rooftop, cupcakes crumbling in our hands, Chicago's skyline glowing gold. "This is ours, right?" he asked, frosting on his cheek. I looked at him, then the city, the building no longer a cage. All of it, baby. The peace, too. The wind carried our laughter, soft but free, as the stars burned above, a firestorm finally at rest.